Hails and welcome to Rauta's News. I don't often have any kind of news to spread, but this time I guess there's a couple of things which I want to address, and I hope you spend a couple of minutes with me to get to know this news. Now, the first news, of course, is that Rauta podcast is live and kicking. That is, we're updating those podcasts on, at least for the time being, on a weekly basis. Me and my co-host Tuukka have already created 2 episodes, and we're going to make a third one actually today when I'm doing this video. So by the time you're watching this video, the episode 3 is roughly to be out, or at least should be done and put out this very weekend. Assuming you're watching this fresh on Saturday, the podcast should be out on Saturday or Sunday, depending on my editing schedule and all. So the first thing is, obviously, what are we talking about and where can you listen to this podcast? Well, there are 2 choices for the time being. Well, at least 2 viable choices. And none of them are exactly free, because I noticed when I was searching for podcast platforms, a lot of them ask for money. Now, that wouldn't be a problem if we had income, sort of a budget where to just upload the material and you could listen to it. But it doesn't really make much of a sense that we spend both our time and money so that people can actually listen to the stuff for free. I don't mind free listening, but it doesn't really cover the expenses, if you get the idea. Hence, there are 2 platforms for the time being which are used. The one is Spotify, because they provide free uploads and all that hosting. And of course, Spotify is the biggest music and podcast streaming platform with YouTube. But with YouTube is kind of hard to just use the audio only, because everything comes with videos. So I've decided to put a lot of these opinion videos and, well, dialogues and conversations to podcast format, rather than waste your 30 minutes of time with videos which don't even, get played on your mobile phone or pad screen, without actually having screen on. It doesn't really make much of a sense unless you're really a YouTube premium person. I mean, if you have the subscription to that, which is, again, a paid one. So, to explain this shortly, it's on Spotify for these reasons. It doesn't cost us a thing, it's free to upload and administrate and all that stuff, and it's most accessible for a lot of people out there. Now, those who don't want to use Spotify for whatever reason, there is always possibility to just listen to the stuff on Rauta's Patreon site. That comes, though, with a cost, because Patreon is a site which is there to support, in this case, Rauta channel and the content, mostly on the video side. But for your support, you will have other benefits, and we'll take a soon look to that. But first, let's take a look how Rauta's podcast is supposed to find and where you can find it on Spotify. Now, if I have here Spotify open, you can just pretty much see how the screen is. For here, I have Finnish Spotify by default, because I live in Finland and all that stuff. So some of these information boxes here, like information, blah, blah, blah. These headlines are in Finnish, but of course the information is all English. So here it is. Rauta podcast is all about music, bands, festivals, releases, whatever. And here you have the individual episodes. Like you can see, 2 episodes out. Here you said when it's uploaded. The first one was 2nd of October, the first one of these, and second one was 8th of October, and you can see how much it lasts. First one is 40 minutes, and the second one is 33 minutes. And here we have the basic topics covered, and that is, for the time being anyway, one major topic which we're going to discuss, spin questions and answer back and forth, to have a dialogue in essence, and then we will have a certain kind of album of the week. Now, it doesn't really make sense for me or Tuukka to talk about the very same albums that have already been reviewed on the album, so I try to avoid that kind of overlapping, so we don't have first the review out on the channel and then we're going to discuss more on the podcast episode. That's something that I try to avoid. So in case you're wondering why you see certain different albums here than on the review schedule, that's very, very much intentional. And we'll see if we will feature more underground releases later on. So far we've picked a couple of bigger ones, and at least the next 2 ones will be certain bigger ones. I think the next 4 ones actually are already planned, and they are all, of course, newer kind. So that's what I'm aiming for, to talk about bands that you are mostly familiar with and which are very accessible. So not just some small print run CDs and LPs, which might not be even available on streaming services and all that stuff. But anyway, this is how it looks. And in case you're wondering how to find this, you can always, of course, use the search tool. Like here it's already showing. But in case you're starting with the homepage and you're like, okay, so where to find this one? I don't know why I'm having this much of a slow pace here. Now I can figure it out. It's the synchronization that's going on and slowing down my net. Anyhow, so here you have the main page for Spotify. You can just pretty much like go through it, or then you can just like, for example, type podcasts, or you can just type it here. Oh, let's see. That's what happens when you type. So first, it might not even show you Rauta because it's not that big. Obviously, it's small and started. But if you go for podcasts here, you will find a Rauta podcast. Very easy. So just select podcast for your search word and you would be able to find it. The second thing which I want to address on this news is, of course, Rauta's Patreon site. Some of you might not even know what Patreon is. This is how the site looks like. It's this support site for the channel, and there are 3 membership levels which you can go with in case you just choose. It might show you different currency depending where you're coming from. These were supposed to be euros, but when you kind of have the different costs for euros and dollars, US dollars, it might show different. I think this is in dollars like 25, 10, and 3, and this includes taxes. Now, like I said, of course, this is totally voluntary thing to support the whole channel here. And in case you want to know what your money is used for, I will explain it. But first, let's go through the benefits. So the first basic tier is Rauta Mercenary, which means €3 a month. And it includes you to have early access for Rauta interviews and the interview videos. That means usually roughly a week's time. Sometimes it's like 6 days, sometimes it's 8. But usually you get to see like the content early on. I don't in that much of a benefit because after we can figure out like, hey, I can anyway watch it for free a little bit later on. Yeah, that's given. The point here is anyway to support the channel. These are just some benefits that you will get if you choose to support the channel. The other access which I recently added is of course to the podcast, which is also uploaded here. So in case you don't want to have Spotify, or you can't have for whatever reason, you will get to listen to those podcast episodes here locally. So if it's like €3 a month and you will get to see hear like 4 episodes, it's less than €1 per episode plus your other benefits. I think it's a fair deal. Also, in case you use Rauta's Discord server, you will get the Patreon only channel access where we'll share some links and stuff like that. For example, these preview videos, so you don't have to always follow Rauta's Patreon site to be updated about these updates. I guess it's supposed to be handy, and of course it means Patreon only updates, but that is usually these early access to these videos. So basically mostly overlapping the same thing. So this is a basic level, doesn't cost you much, but at least you help Rauta to do content. And I'll get back to that in a bit. €9, you get all the previous benefits, but of course you are also having the possibility to suggest questions for interviews. Now I'll be honest with you, I've been lazy to mention which bands I interview, so it's kind of hard for you to figure out which bands to ask these questions. But this is a two-way street. You can always ask me, hey, which bands are you going to see or interview? And then I could like explain it to you, and then you could say like, okay, could you then ask these and that and those questions? Very simple in that. We communicate and you might get your interview questions asked. The other thing is possibility to join Rauta podcast when we're doing it in the Discord live. That means you could actually start listening to it, and we could actually take you into the show if you want to. That is a possibility. Or you could just listen on real time. That is a live recording happening. So that is something that I want to share with you in case that's something you want to experience. third one, the big one called Rauta Warlord. And you might wonder why this is so expensive. Well, first of all, it includes a free CD each month, shipped to your home or whatever address you prefer. So it could be something like this, a review CD, I just got it done, or that one, The thing here is I review a bunch of CDs each month, and I won't be storing all of them in my collection. So leftovers I either give away, sell away, trade away, or give to Rauta patrons. There are a couple of people who are, warlords, and as such they get CDs every month. I keep sending them these CDs, and as such you could be getting that. Also, you get everything on the previous tiers, plus this quarterly merchandise, long sleeve shirt, neck gaiter, mug, and tote bag. So every 3 months you would get actual free product. Well, free. I mean, it costs like 22 euros or $25. So you would get some kind of merchandise every 3 months, a CD every month, plus the previous benefits. It's up to you whether or not this feels like rubbery or like too expensive, but I mean, these are the options. And you can, of course, always come back to me with better options, like should you include this and that kind of a tier with this and that kind of a benefits, and then I will figure out whether or not these are possibility to happen. So, to sum it up, in case you just want to come close to the ending and hear what I have to say, Rauta Podcast now running on weekly basis. That's what we aim to do. Currently, we have no guests. It's just me and my co-host Tuukka. Who knows, maybe in the future. Hopefully, we will have guests, both foreign ones and domestic ones, and it could be band members, or it could be just, random metal scene fan. Who knows? Whatever matters is that if there are things to be said, which then again spawn more conversation, it's worth doing. And the second thing is, of course, this Patreon site. You can choose to become Patreon only for a month, for years. I don't really get to choose that. And now to answer the question, what is this money used for? Do you use this for beer or drugs and hookers? No. These are used for traveling expenses. Wow. The thing here is, why Rauta would need to travel? Well, me and my camera crew, sometimes we're 2 or 3 people, we go to festivals and then we get to do these interviews. You people seem to like more than the other content, which is kind of a given. So in order for us to pay for the hotels or flights, hopefully both, we need to travel, and traveling costs money. So in order to us make more trips, because currently we don't really have money to do a lot of trips, which is kind of understandable, this Patreon money is used to cover those expenses. So the more we have this travel budget, that is more we have Patreon money, the more we can travel, the more we can do interviews and other content. The reviews, which I do at home, don't cost a thing, so I am not using that money on that. I also don't use money for, buying myself more shirts. I have plenty. I don't need that. But traveling is the one that costs, especially hotels and flights. And this money is used on that. I hope this answered to your questions, and I hope that you find this news worthwhile or useful. And in case you have some other comments or questions regarding the news here or podcast or Patreon site, ask me and I will answer you. Thank you for your time, and looking forward you to listen to the podcast, give me feedback about it, and also take a look at Rauta's Patreon site and at least consider becoming a Patreon supporter for at least a little bit of time in order to help us travel and do more interviews. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your time. Have a good day.